Like, just, I won't make it a sob story, okay? So I leave work, I go to the gun range just to blow off some steam. I am there maybe 5 minutes, and some lady came in yoga pants and blew her head off 5 feet from me.
Oh my God.
And having the background that I do in trauma, first aid, all that stuff, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I did everything that I could to resuscitate her, but when I turned her head to clear her airway, I actually stuck my fingers into her brain matter, and that really, really fucked me up.
Yeah.
Bad.
Wow.
And the reason that I say that is, that was the first time that I really experienced extreme hypervigilance, not being able to go to an ATM, not being able to sit in a restaurant where, your back's to an open room, those sorts of things.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching Rock Bottom with Ryan. I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Sober Strong Apparel. They make heavyweight premium gear for people who take sobriety seriously. 10% of every order goes back to recovery centers. Sober Strong also runs an impact sponsorship program that puts gear directly into facilities for people just starting out. So if you're sober or sober curious, check out SoberStrongApparel.com, grab some gear, rep the crew. They make amazing hats. They make shirts. I mean, the quality is incredible. So check them out. SoberStrongApparel.com. Check them out. Use code ROCKBOTTOM for 10% off. That's ROCKBOTTOM, all uppercase, for 10% off. SoberStrongApparel.com. Amazing gear, amazing quality. I love what this brand represents. I wear it all the time. I mean, practically every day I'm wearing Sober Strong. I love what they represent, and then 10% going to treatment facilities is pretty incredible. So if you're sober and you're proud of it, you should rep sobriety like a badge of honor by wearing Sober Strong. Thank you very much. Enjoy this episode. Appreciate you all. Hey, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan and Rachel, here with Matthew, the Prophet's Prophet. How you doing, man?
Trying to stay out of trouble, brother. How about yourself?
Good.
Doing well. Glad to have you on today. And so, yeah, we generally do a lot of recovery talk on this podcast, but we are branching into a lot of mental health stuff. And you and I got connected talking a little bit about PTSD and your experience. So we're going to go into a lot of that today. So first, to start off, where are you from? Kind of how long have you been doing the work you do? And give us a little background.
So I'm in Houston, and my work has changed consistently over the years. I've done everything from selling steaks door to door to combat medic in the military to clinical research to now I own an elite sales coaching agency.
Awesome. So let's backtrack, kind of go into the early days, like what started you, like how did you grow up? What was your family like? And what kind of started to lead you into PTSD, or what may have started triggering it?
Yeah, so I didn't have the greatest childhoods growing up. My father was wildly abusive. And my mother, she wasn't exactly a lot better. So I've been on my own since I was about 15 years old. And I've been struggling with that, I would say, to this day, even though I found a lot of closure.
When you look back at your childhood, though, and if you don't mind specifics, what really triggered you and caused your PTSD, would you say, if you don't mind diving right in?
Don't mind at all. I would say it's the actual acts of violence. My dad beat me more than I've had hot meals. So those were bad. And when you're growing up, when you're so young and so impressionable, if you don't have that home support, you also no longer have confidence. You don't have social abilities. A lot of times you lack personal hygiene. There's a lot of things that go along with that just kind of compound to really make it a nasty experience.
Wow. Yeah. So can you give maybe just like a brief example of something you'd be doing as a child that would lead to some kind of physical abuse?
Breathing.
Jeez. Wow. So you think was he an alcoholic, or did you have his specific
He
issues
was.
that were causing it?
No, he was an alcoholic,
Mhm.
definitely by the time I was a teenager, for sure.
Where was your mother as this was taking place?
Usually getting beat as well, and, it's unfortunate because I believe she had kind of like a Stockholm syndrome or an abused wife syndrome, but it's been very hard for me over the past, few decades to find that forgiveness for her. I mean, she's no longer here, right? But on that same token, like, now that I have a kid, if he was in that situation, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that would stop me from getting him to safety. I don't care what the odds are, right? So I would say I still struggle with that today too.
Wow. So, did you have any siblings as well?
I did. And, my brother's 9 years older than me. He was the firstborn and he put up with a lot of crap, but it was mainly emotional. And for the most part, you know, in his high school, college years and beyond. My sister's 3 years older than me, and she received, she didn't have a peachy childhood either, but I really put myself in the middle of things to deflect a lot of their anger onto myself.
And this went on into your teenage years or throughout your teenage years?
Throughout my teenage years, when I was 15 years old, I ran away. I moved in with a friend who had an apartment, rented a room, and started my life.
Wow. So, like, what were some of the ways you deal with some of the problem? Did you try to fight back? Did you hide? And what were some of the coping mechanisms with the abuse?
All of that. So, it really comes down to age. Before I was a teenager, it was all about, survival, hiding. You're just scared, right? As you start to get a little bit older, you start to get that testosterone. Then you start to act out in school. You start to do a lot of, in my case, I did a lot of fighting at school. I was bullied a lot. And after I got into those situations, then I started to fight back with my father.
Wow. So you started to like toughen up as you got older. Not toughen up, but it started to like realize, hey, I can at least defend myself. If I can defend myself with the bullies, I can try to defend myself at home.
It became fight or flight, not just flight.
Okay. That's good, because I had some physical altercations with my dad growing up, and he was more, I would say, on the emotional abusive end for the most part. But once I got older and I started like actually standing up for myself with the emotional abuse, it led to some physical altercations that got pretty bad, and my little sister witnessed them and stuff. And, it's pretty scary, trying to take on a grown man when you're a child, basically. And it's like, how far can I really take it? Because in the end, they're probably going to win the fight, so,
Absolutely.
and they have the power, the mind power and the financial power to like kick you out at any moment. So it's like I got to take it. But at least you had the the strength within yourself to escape and get out of that situation. So that's good.
So then you
Yeah. And
escape and then you go to your friend's house?
yeah, so he let me rent a room in his apartment. Now, obviously, I didn't have any income at the time. So for the first few days, I was just going through the newspaper, going through the classified ads. And I saw an ad that said $100 to $300 cash pay daily. That was it. I saw it and I was like, that's for me. I showed up and they taught me how to sell frozen steaks out of a freezer on the back of my truck going door to door. And that's when I really started to address these issues. Because when you start to get into sales, you can't be an introvert. You don't necessarily have to be an extrovert. And for the first 20 years of my career, I believe that charisma was everything in sales, but I didn't have any of that. Right. So it took me a long time to start to develop it and
Confidence
start
is a huge thing
to
too. So,
absolutely
and I'm sure
and
that
start to
confidence was
realize
really kind of diminished because of your dad, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But on that same token, there were some good things that came from the evil, right? I developed a very thick skin. There was virtually nothing you could do to offend me or insult me. And that helped a lot doing door-to-door sales.
Yeah. So rejection wasn't something you were scared of anymore.
Correct.
And then I wasn't abused, but I do have PTSD, and I want to go back to before you moved in with your friend though. Is your childhood a blur? Did that happen to your mental health? Do you have like bits and pieces that you kind of remember?
Yep,
So you,
Mhm.
that is
so you
correct.
started to like master kind of numbing yourself emotionally and like blocking things out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that you consciously do, but it does happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I can kind of relate to some of the story because my parents were divorced, but my mother was in an abusive situation at her house. My dad's living situation was slightly better, but like, he and I had our sets of chaos and stuff. So I ended up living at friends' houses a lot of the time. Like through middle school and high school, I was staying, friends' parents were taking care of me and feeding me and stuff. And it was just like all of seventh and eighth grade, I think I was taken care of by other parents and
Yeah.
stuff. And I thought that was normal, and then I realized later in life, I'm like, I don't know any other people that were doing that. So I
Yeah.
totally get it. Did you ever like start to resort to like methods of numbing yourself? Because we talk a lot about addiction and alcoholism in here. Did you ever think like, hey, maybe I should use drugs to get rid of this feeling, or should I drink? Or did you ever start to wander off that direction?
Absolutely. So I'll say this. I experimented with a lot of things, none of the hard drugs. I never injected anything. I definitely experimented. And, when I was younger, I smoked a lot of weed, an asinine amount of weed. And I don't know that it really helped, honestly. Right. And it's one of those things that I gave up when I went into the military and then I went into medicine. I picked it up a little bit now, but not nearly as bad as I was when I was a kid. But now I actually see like some therapeutic effects to it.
So you're 15, you move in with your buddy, you turn 18, and then you join the military.
I wanted to, but I actually didn't weigh enough. I was 6'3" and about 120 pounds. So it took me almost 3 years to put on enough weight that I could actually join the military. I signed a contract when I was 22 and went to boot camp when I was 23.
Wow.
Hmm. And do you feel like the military was like a form of escape for you or structure?
Let me think about this for a second because it definitely was not an escape. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Now, I want to be crystal clear. I did not make the cut. Okay. But I did go through buds. I did do some of the training. And I think that there were a lot of people that I went to buds with who did not have horrible childhoods like I did. And they succeeded, right? They're actually SEALs right now. That wasn't my experience. And I feel like because of my background, that really gave me a lot of motivation to do a lot of the things that they ask you to do. Because it's incredible. I mean, there's no words to really describe how insanely hard that is, right? But it's like I had already been through so much. Like, how bad could it be, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Turns out really bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like getting into the military, what was your role, and like how did you experience things in the military? Like what were you forced to do anything crazy
Yeah.
or what?
So after I was dropped from buds, they told me that I could be a corpsman or I could be a corpsman. And I was like, well, that's awesome. What's a corpsman? It
Mhm.
turns out they are the medical arm of the Navy, and they also offer medical care to the Marines, which are a department of the Navy. Because I had gone through buds and I was a male, they attached me to the Marines. So I became what they call an FMF or a Fleet Marine Force or hospital corpsman.
Wow. Okay. So what were some of the initial things that you
Mhm.
witnessed like in there that were like, would you say caused some PTSD later?
So really, I would say the military wasn't that bad for me as far as PTSD goes, but because of my injury in buds, I was medically discharged and retired before I could ever deploy. I did see some crazy stuff in the hospital and in the operating rooms and
Uh-huh.
whatnot as I was going through training, but I don't think that the military really contributed to my PTSD as much as it helped. It was when I got out. So when I got out of the military, I had received so much elite training that I had this overwhelming sense of guilt because I never got to deploy to use it, right? They discharged me before I could ever deploy, which I feel like they weakened an entire nation by doing that, but that's another story for another time.
Wow.
Mhm.
And so I decided to actually dedicate 10 years of my life to taking the advances from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and then translating that into civilian care. Because if you get hit with a hand grenade or if you get into an accident on a highway, unless you're in a war zone, the surgeon will never know which one it was. The injuries are physiologically the exact same. So I did that at the University of Texas here in Houston, attached to Memorial Hermann Hospital. That is the busiest and most violent level 1 trauma center in the world. It was the experiences that I had there that really fucked me up for a little bit. I'm sorry, excuse the French.
No, you could curse.
Curse all you want.
I appreciate that.
No, this show's all about just saying how you feel. So, interesting. So, did you make a lot of friends in the military? Did you start to just like get, better socially and all that? Did it help you with all that stuff, like building self-confidence, self-esteem, ability to
All
defend
of that.
yourself? Good.
All of that and more. You know, you grow up fast when you join the military. And I know I joined when I was 23, but from the day that I enlisted, they really changed my core being. They changed the way that I see the world. They changed the way that I view teamwork, which did not exist pre-military. I was absolutely 100% into everything for myself pre-military. I was a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Do you think being in the military puts you on guard with the people you love outside of the military?
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, it really, and again, because I never deployed, it gave me a lot more respect for the mental struggles that our servicemen have, who have had PTSD or have PTSD. So a foundational component of everything that I researched at the University of Texas actually had a PTSD component because, if you shatter your leg, you know, a good orthopedic surgeon can put that together. I mean, they're a carpenter, for lack of better terminology. That's the easy part. But if you don't fix the mental part, they're still broken.
Mm-hmm.
So true. That's so true.
Yeah. If you don't work on your mental health, you're going to be angry and lash out regardless, right? And
Absolutely.
what steps did you take when you started realizing that you're having flashbacks and PTSD and lashing out on, loved ones when you realize your mental health was deteriorating?
That took me a long time. That took me a long time. I would say almost 7 or 8 years. And, it finally got to the point where I could not function anymore. I just couldn't do it. And so I started seeing psychiatrists, psychologists, behavioral therapists. The list goes on. The one thing that I found, well, actually, two things I found that really helped. Number one was a medication, Minipraz or Prazosin. It's like a 1 milligram pill. Basically, whenever you get nightmares, okay, there's a physiological response that causes those. It's adrenaline. And so this is a form of blood pressure medication when taken in a very, very small dose can actually lower that amount of adrenaline and remove your nightmares. For
Huh.
me, it was a magic pill, right? You never realize how important your sleep is until you haven't had it for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. Yeah. I used to suffer
And
from
then,
insomnia as a kid. So, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then I would say the second thing was neurofeedback. Neurofeedback. I went through the Sims protocol. That was insane. I went through, I think it was 40 or 45 sessions,
Uh-huh.
going 1 to 2 times a week. I would say after about 3 to 4 weeks, I could start to notice subtle differences. But after like 6 to 8 weeks, it was crazy because I'm out there functioning in the world, just thinking to myself, like, wow, is this what a normal person feels like?
Mm-hmm. And can you explain what type of therapy that is? Because you said you did a lot of sessions. Can you explain what type of therapy that is?
Of course. So physiologically, have you ever played a sport or a game or done anything where you just felt like you were on the top of your game? There was nothing you could do to fail, right? Okay. They can use neurofeedback to actually recreate that feeling, and they do it in professional sports players. So many pro sports players go through neurofeedback on a regular basis. Basically, the brain waves that you have as you go through different types of trauma or, just living your life, they can start to distort. They can get weaker, stronger, have abnormal wavelengths, all sorts of things. So neurofeedback really corrects those.
What did you, so you went to University of Texas?
No, I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of college 4 times.
Okay. So what, if you could
I
go
have a
back and
degree. I have a PhD in enthusiasm.
so I like it. So I want to hear more about what led to that because coming from such a tough childhood and, obviously probably became down on yourself. Was it that initial sales job that kind of like, catalyzed your confidence, enthusiasm, and just ability to like hold yourself
Nope,
confidently?
absolutely not. Uh, you know, when I started that job, I worked for 2 weeks. That was supposed to be my training period, and I made $40. I was pissed. It was nowhere near enough to cover, I was just renting a room, right? And it was in the 90s, but nevertheless, it wasn't nearly enough to cover my rent. And when I was checking out, I had a realization that really hit me hard. There were people that had real problems, heroin, crack addicts. They would come in, and this is a 1099 job. It's door to door sales. There's no background checks. You meet some shady people doing that, right? Nonetheless, they would come in every single day that they worked. They would make 700, 1,000, $1,200, something like that. They would disappear for 2 days, go on a bender. When they ran out of cash, they'd come back. And when I saw that happening, I was like, if a crackhead can do this, I can do this. There's got to be some type of system behind it.
Yeah.
And so I methodically broke down and re-engineered that system. It wasn't until probably my third sales job that I realized that I was actually starting to get pretty good.
Wow. What was your third sales job?
Oh man, so I've sold everything, but my third sales job was selling cars.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Selling cars.
Well,
Yep.
yeah.
And at 18 years old, I became a regional sales trainer at our local dealership here in Katy, Texas.
Huh.
So you built something from the ground up, basically, with all that trauma, basically. And at that time, you weren't working on your mental health, though. You were just surviving.
Surviving and struggling.
How did
Absolutely struggling.
how did you flip that switch into where you were at the first couple jobs? How did you like decide, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and how did your approach change?
I think I started to realize that scared's not the right word, but it's the word I'm going to use. That I didn't have to be scared of strangers, that I could start conversations with random people and find common ground, that it was actually relatively easy to start building relationships. That was the first time in my life that I started to see value in those relationships, right? So I think it was really that being able to connect with other human beings, getting some charisma.
How did that charisma help you in your personal relationships, like friendships, significant others, stuff like that?
Well, I mean, everything from the ground up. There were no significant others before that point. There were none. But I mean, I was still a kid, but nonetheless.
Yeah, you started to get more comfortable talking to the significant others and getting girlfriends or whatever and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm a rebel at my very core. And so at that point it really became kind of how far could I push the envelope, right? I started doing everything that I could to get free stuff. I mean, it sounds stupid and I do it to this day. I do pretty good for myself, but it drives my wife crazy. We'll go through a drive-through. I'm always trying to get something free. Usually it's the toy from the kids meal, but I mean, if they give me food or whatever, I give it to the homeless guy at the corner. I don't really care about that. For me, it's the sale. And I've been doing that since I was, maybe 17 years old.
Do you think it's like a hustle mentality that that you kind of just developed because you kind of just want to rebel against like being shut down by your dad in your past and prove yourself that you're better than that and that you can get anything you want? Is it
Yeah,
like
like a form of survival.
I've never viewed it that way, but there may be some validity there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah,
Sales,
honestly,
for
I've never
sure.
actually viewed it that way.
wow?
Yeah. Now that I'm hearing your story, yeah, I mean, maybe it could possibly be, sales and you're good at it, but it could be like a survival tactic from your past.
Yeah, absolutely. I had some recent events too. I've dealt with PTSD. I've had probably 4 severe bouts with it. But just a couple of years ago, I was the head of sales at a multi-billion-dollar software company. I had a rough week. It was a very rough week. My dog had passed away. My sales were declining. I won't make it a sob story, okay? So I leave work. I go to the gun range just to blow off some steam. I am there maybe 5 minutes, and some lady came in yoga pants and blew her head off 5 feet from me.
Oh my God.
And having the background that I do in trauma, first aid, all that stuff. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I did everything that I could to resuscitate her, but when I turned her head to clear her airway, I actually stuck my fingers into her brain matter, and that really, really fucked me up
Yeah.
bad.
Wow.
And the reason that I say that is, that was the first time that I really experienced extreme hypervigilance, not being able to go to an ATM, not being able to sit in a restaurant where, your back's to an open room, those sorts of things. And I started doing a lot of repetitive things just out of habit's not the right word, maybe being scared or whatever, going on perimeter checks, for instance, right? I would walk the perimeter of my house just to make sure that there was nobody coming, like extreme hypervigilance. And I had an amazing breakthrough with one of my friends. After seeing a litany of psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, all that stuff, I was talking to one of my boys who he's got 3 Purple Heart to Bronze Star. He's been through some stuff, right? And he's struggled with severe forms of PTSD. So I called him and I'm like, bro, you've been in my position. What's the one piece of advice that you could give me that'll actually help? And what he told me was the things that I was doing, like going on perimeter checks. We'll just stick with that one for now, right? It's something that you'll never stop doing. And I'm like, well, you're not helping me, bro. He goes, I mean, it is what it is. It's something you'll never stop doing. The thing that you have to do is remove the bad habits from it. So you're still going to go on your perimeter checks, but it can't be a perimeter check. You have to be walking the dog, taking your kid out for a walk, going to the park. He's like, you have to take the bad habits out of it. And, it took a while. I would say maybe like 4 to 6 months of, taking the bad habits out of it. But that hypervigilance really started to subside. I mean, in an extreme way.
Wow. So after that whole situation at the gun range happened, the hypervigilance turned into like semi paranoia and just kind of anxiety, constant anxiety that was almost crippling.
I would say more than paranoia, but yes, absolutely. I mean, it was something that you would never expect in your wildest dreams. It just comes out of the middle of nowhere. Bang, your life changes, right? You are kind of always on guard to make sure that there's, nothing else that goes bang, for lack of better terminology.
Right. You're always on guard. You're afraid of something happening again. And what type of therapy did you do once you realized you had this going on, checking the perimeters and all that?
So behavioral therapy was important, but neurofeedback, that really, really helped me again. And it's something else that I realized, and I've done a lot of research. I have probably 50 publications on PTSD. Something that I have researched in the past, but never really hit me until this last event, was you don't gain a thick skin to PTSD. Some people think that they do, but in reality, if they ever experience it again, it's always significantly worse. It's one of those things that builds. It is not something that you can build a thick skin to. And that was just a crazy, crazy realization to me that, I would argue what I went through as a kid was should have given me the most severe PTSD, but that wasn't it.
Yeah.
The thing that gave me the most severe PTSD was losing my patience, losing that lady.
Yeah. Yeah. I could understand that. It's one thing after another, and it could just continue to get worse. Have you heard of EMDR therapy? Are you familiar with that?
No, not off the top of my head.
So it taps into your childhood or any past traumas and you relive it, and you have a guided therapist guiding you through it, guided therapist guiding you through it. I do that to tap into my childhood. So, I mean, I'm just, throwing it out there. It's similar to the type of therapy that you mentioned, though, reliving it. It's hard as hell, though. It's hard, but you have to go revisit it. But after you revisit it several times, it starts to calm down, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. And so after you've explained it, I am actually familiar with that. And there's a lot of people that use MDMA for that. And
Yeah.
I've done the research on this too. MDMA, it's really bad for your brain. It is really, I cannot stress this enough. It is really, really, really bad for your brain. But if you take small amounts of it when you are revisiting trauma, it creates a disassociation with the negative emotions of that
Mm.
trauma. So it's a lot easier for them to have you regress go through these things and you're able to talk about it without breaking down is hard. And from the literature that I've read, there's been a lot of positive results from that, but I've never partaken myself.
Yeah, kind of like microdosing on mushrooms and stuff. People do that now, so it's kind of
Mhm.
I've heard of
similar
that
thing.
too,
So a little bit of something really bad apparently can be helpful.
Yeah.
depending.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? I mean, chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very good example.
yes. And how do you deal with your PTSD and traumas now today after doing so much healing?
Awareness, trying to push awareness to other people, not people without PTSD. I mean, I don't mind talking to them about it, but mainly other people that have suffered from it, giving them awareness on the things that they can do to take the edge off. I don't know if that's the words, those are the words that I'm looking for, but I'll use it.
Yeah.
So being aware of when it's coming on and what to do when it does come on.
Not just that, but there's a lot of veterans that suffer from horrid night terrors, right? Having very, very, very bad nightmares. Taking a mini praz can reduce that to, virtually zero for a lot of patients. Getting your sleep right is the first step in getting everything else right.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even before I started drinking and using, I always had issues with sleep or whatever. So one of the biggest things I had to be prescribed when I got sober was sleep meds. And now I sleep like 7, 8 hours a night now. And it's like I can function so much better. I can deal with my
Yeah,
problems so
absolutely.
much easier. I can respond to things better because I'm not sleep deprived. So it all makes a difference.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
So coming kind of leading into like where you're at today, what you're doing now, what exactly are you doing now? Being the prophet's prophet, what's that all about? And what's your career like?
Sure. So I really believe that the events that happened at that gun range contributed to me resigning from that software company. And when I resigned, I had already created a company to do sales training, but I was mainly just doing public speaking at that point. It was something that I was just doing on the weekends because my day job, I mean, I worked a shit ton of hours. So sorry, I lost my track of thought.
No, it's okay. So I was wondering kind of like how you got into what you're doing now, as far as
Thank
being
you.
the prophet's prophet and what that's all about.
So when I resigned, I really went all in on launching my own business. Now I'm a multipreneur. I've launched many businesses before. I have a marketing agency. I own a credit card processing company, but those were all side gigs. This was the first time that I was going to launch a company that was going to be my main source of income. And it has been a wild success. A wild success. Yeah. And, I really only started first accepting students in January.
What's it about though, exactly?
So I tell people that I teach persuasive skills so refined, you could sell firewood to the devil himself.
I saw
And
that on your
so
Instagram. I was like, how do you sell firewood to the devil?
I do actually have a pitch for it, but the point is everybody's in sales. Even if you're not in direct sales, you're in sales. Whether it's a spouse choosing what movie you guys should go see that night, persuasion is such a huge part of our lives. I believe that persuasion is the number one most powerful skill that any human being can possess.
So you're teaching other people how to use that form of persuasion to get what they
Mhm.
want, or just in like sales careers?
All of the above. So most of my students are looking for sales ability. That said, I wrote a book called The Theory of Games. And so game theory, the theory states that, if you're playing a game like checkers, there's a very finite number of moves. So you can, by definition, map out every single route that your opponent can take. That's one piece of it. The other piece is instinctive response. So when you're talking to somebody and you start nodding like this, all of a sudden they start nodding back, right? Instinctive response, mirror neurons, those sorts of things. So I teach people to start using that in their everyday life, right? So when you're going to order coffee, like I said, I'm always trying to get something free. You're not in a coffee shop. You're in your confidence gymnasium. I want you to try some jujitsu, right? So that is really the basis of charisma, not sales. That will teach you some sales ability, but that's really the basis of charisma. So I do have people reach out to me who are just trying to improve their charisma. They're having problems in their dating life. They're doing public speaking, those sorts of things.
Okay. So just learning how to like exude confidence and charisma and just know how to present yourself and know how to respond to things, know what signs to look for from the person you're talking to and how to respond to that.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is, just getting over individual fears that people have about, the different things that they're doing. I don't know if you've ever heard somebody say that the fear of public speaking is worse than the fear of death. That is absolute bullshit. Okay. But I've had quite a few students that really believed that. And what they were afraid of was, speaking to 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people, something like that, and making a mistake. That's it. Right. So what I would do is have them write a speech. Okay. It didn't have to be anything extravagant, but it did have to be in their own words. And they would just read it aloud to themselves, maybe to a spouse or partner, whatever, but they could do it to themselves. And as you're reading through it, intentionally make an error. Stop, slowly correct yourself, and just keep going, right? Confidence is nothing more than knowing what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So after you have been through that situation so many times, all of a sudden, you know what to do next. They're no longer afraid of speaking in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple moments in high school and once in college where like I got in front and I was just like in my head before I had to give a speech, or it wasn't even in front of that many people. Like the first time in high school was in front of 30 people, classmates that I'm around every day. For some reason I started shaking when I was up front, and then somebody pointed it out. Why is he shaking? I was like, I don't know why I'm nervous. I'm still standing up there and I'm still giving my presentation, but I just had this like physical reaction to it. And then same thing happened in college and I had no idea why. There was only 12 people. And those are the two times that stuck with me, and they made me like kind of paranoid to give speeches the rest of my life. But I mean, I've had no trouble since, but there is a physical reaction to it. And I remember how frustrated I was.
Yeah. We're worried about what other
Oh, I
people think.
empathize with that.
Yeah. And it wasn't even
When I was a kid, I
messing
had that
up.
to the nth degree.
Yeah. And it wasn't even of like worried about making a mistake. It was just something about all the eyeballs watching my every movement. I don't know.
Yeah.
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 We're afraid of what
Yeah, it
other
can be
people are going to
intimidating.
think of us.
Yeah. But like when other people are giving speeches, I half paying attention the whole time, unfortunately. And I'm not watching their every movement. I'm not watching their hands or their facial expressions. Like I got to remind
Everyone's
myself
like that.
that nobody's really analyzing you, they're just listening, so
Yeah,
that's
that's
hard,
true.
hard to break out of that thought process for some people though. So I get it.
Yes, and I do have a question. So, if you could speak to your younger self right now, what would he be more shocked about with your life now?
Can you rephrase that for me?
If you could speak to your younger self right now, what do you think he would be most shocked about with your life now?
Everything from, being tatted up to my confidence, my success, not only, in my family life, but professionally, the amount of money that I've made, how comfortably I live, all those things. I think that I would be unrecognizable and unbelievable to my younger self, completely unbelievable to my younger self.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you, if you could talk to your younger self, what would you say to him?
Mhm.
I'm so glad you asked. Two things. First, where your head goes, your ass will follow. I will let that sit in for a second. Where your head goes, your ass will follow. Just make sure they're both pointed in the right direction. So, I've always been a rebel and I've always been very, very, very persistent. And it took me years to figure that out. The second piece of advice that I would give is never think smaller than world domination. Never think smaller than world domination. Even if you're doing sales in a local market, you have to think beyond that. You have to think about dominating your entire market across the entire globe, right? Even if that market is only in the US, whatever. The bottom line is never think smaller than world domination, and you'll never pigeonhole yourself into these lower entry level positions.
So you just always think, you give yourself that mindset that I'm unstoppable, I'm capable of anything, I can take myself anywhere, basically.
And there's always more. There's always more. There's always more that you can accomplish.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Don't limit yourself to just, like you said, entry level position, but not just in career, but just in life, like,
Yeah. I would also say in hindsight, there's probably one more thing that I would say because I was incredibly arrogant. And I'm so sorry. I lost my track of thought again. This, believe it or not, this is actually effects for my PTSD.
I have it too.
I understand. So if you're extremely arrogant at times, so obviously like it doesn't always bring out the best traits. So I'll let you
Thank you,
continue.
Ryan. It would be everybody without exception has something they can teach you.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of respect for that, right? Like I said, I saw those crackheads. I'm like, fuck, if they can do it, I can do it. But I didn't have any respect for them. I didn't think they had anything they could teach me. I was very, very wrong. They had a lot they could teach me to this day. I mean, 8, 9, 10 years old, every now and then we'll say something wildly profound, right? Everybody has something they can teach you. And so you should address everybody with that level of respect. I didn't always have that.
I agree with that statement. I agree.
Yes.
Do you ever have moments of, even with all you've accomplished and how far you've come from the person you were as a kid to now, do you ever have moments of insecurity where you have to remind yourself of where you are now and how you've gotten past that?
Every single day, every single day. And I would argue that the people that don't either don't care enough about what they're doing or they're arrogant, right? It's human nature. It's the foundation of human nature, actually. So yeah, I doubt myself all the time. The thing is, you have to have the character to continue beyond that doubt, right?
And
In fact, I would say it like this. I had a potential client reach out to me about 6 months ago, and he said, Matt, we've gone through this like long explanation of what you do and how you can help me. He goes, I'm about your age. He's like, I'm about 40 years old. He's like, I've been in sales for about 20 years. He's like, why are you so special? Why do you have the success you have? He's like, you're not Superman. You bleed like me. You breathe like me. I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to answer that one?
How did
And
you?
so I thought about it for a
yeah.
second. I said, the answer is actually pretty simple. I have failed more times than you have tried. That's the only difference,
It's a good answer,
right?
actually.
And so again, you have to have that resilience to just drive through your doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a quote like yesterday. It said like, "Winners are only losers that didn't quit," or something like that. So
Yeah, right? Absolutely. There's never any traffic jams in the extra mile.
exactly, I feel like more motivated just talking to you about this stuff because it's like
I
world
appreciate that.
domination. I'm kind of thinking world domination now.
Oh my God.
Just kidding.
I love
No,
that.
no, but I feel like you know your stuff, so it's cool. Because I used to have huge issues with confidence. Like I would even seek validation from in relationships with significant others and attention from girls and trying to have a lot of friends when I was drinking and stuff just to feel more secure about myself. But the guy on the inside was always broken. But so it took a long time, probably not until I got sober to finally just accept and be confident with who I actually am. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say I didn't get to that point until post-military. It wasn't until I was in the military for about a year until I hit that point.
So what does a day in the 24 hours of Matthew look like right now?
Mhm.
How do you go about your day?
Absolute, utter chaos. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome.
I build this plane as I fly it. I fly by the seat of my pants. Yeah. So, on any given day, right now, I'm actually going through a podcast blitz,
Oh, okay.
trying to get a little bit more exposure in the market. Not only that, but especially on podcasts like this, where I have a much more stronger emotional and physical connection too. Yeah. That's a big part of what I'm doing right now. Other than that, I'm doing sales trainings and I do a lot of public speaking.
That is awesome. And I do have a final question for you. For the people
Please.
who are listening who are struggling with PTSD or mental health and they're not seeking help, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
They need to look at people who have struggled with PTSD, who have come to terms with it. They have to see life on the other side. Until they do, there's no escape. Think about that for a second, right? Until you know that you can get through it and have a meaningful, productive life, why would you try for it? So I think it's important that they seek out people who have struggled with it in the past, even if they're not seeking treatment, seeking help, whatever. They should not be forced to do that, but expose yourself to it. Life does improve. It can improve. And I do still struggle with PTSD daily, but it is not nearly as bad as it was many years ago.
Awesome. Well, let's appreciate you coming on and sharing and everything. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience with PTSD or your life now?
No, I really appreciate you having me on. I hope that I was able to add some value to some of your listeners.
Extremely. This is a topic we have not discussed yet, which I want to discuss more of in the future, actually, PTSD, and also people just, developing the confidence to reach their potential, and know their potential. So because talking to a lot of people in recovery and stuff, a lot of us are broken people who have lost a lot of hope, even in sobriety sometimes. And it's nice to just have that boost knowing what we're capable of, like even with this podcast, we didn't know a lot of it was going to be possible, but it just like you start to see the results, the more you believe in yourself. I think that's what you had to develop as well, becoming who you are today.
Absolutely. If anything that I have said has reached any of your viewers today, you can follow me on Instagram at Profits Profit or visit my website, profits-profit.com. I'd love to speak to you.
Awesome. I love that. That was my next thing is shout out, how do people reach you, and really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Matthew. I appreciate it. I'm glad you reached out to me, and I'm glad we had you on because I got some really valuable stuff to say.
No, this has been a great experience. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.